Good morning, a good Chodesh. Hope you're all well. Elul is here. Hashem. We are learning another Perek of Mishnayos today. Today's shir is Lila Nishmas Aaron Nachum Misucha Kohen. Hashem have an Aliyah, and before Shem V'Yisrael and Racha Leah, Racha Bas Pesach Zelda. She needs a real before Shem. She was changing her treatment yesterday. It'd be real close for her. Rachel Aliana Bazia Bracha, Aaron Mishka Marisha, Chai Bas Dovabela. Before Shem Besol Shar Chal Yisrael, and the Shefer Bracha Bas Lecha Tzvi Noach Ben Bracha Racha Leah, and Zivit Bakara for Shmuel Dor Ben Hinda Miriam, and Tzvi Ben Chana, and Ksiva Chesimatov for Gans Klal Yisrael. As we start with Chodesh Elul. Okay, Perek Gimel of Maseches Eduyos. We're going to be talking about the machlokas in between Eduyos and Perek and the Chachamim about different topics. As we know, this Masechta is not random, like it's all over the place. It's topics from all over Shas, and they keep jumping from one topic to the other topic seems like every Mishnah. So it's fun, but there's like a little consistency in all the other Masechtas of Shas, like Pesachim is about Pesach and Sukkot is about Sukkot. This is just encyclopedic knowledge. Okay, so the first half of this Perek deals. Okay, I just said deals with the machlokas in between those Ben Hercules and the Chachamim, and the first one repeats itself in Taharus in all those Perek Gimel. We're talking about transmitting Tumah by a corpse. So there are three ways, by way of intro, there are three ways that a human corpse can transmit Tumah. One is through maga, through touching. If a person or object touches a corpse, then it becomes tameh. By masa, by carrying. If a person carries a corpse, they're carrying the coffin, or you're rolling. A lot of times the coffin is on wheels. The coffin itself doesn't have any wheels, but they put like a wheelie underneath the coffin to transport it toward the kever. So if you're even touching the coffin, then that becomes tameh. Even if you're not touching the actual mace itself, but you're touching the coffin that the mace is in, obviously it's an empty coffin. It's in storage. So that's not makabel tumah. It's only once the person's in it. And then ohel, which is literally a roof. A person or object that's under the same roof as a corpse, or directly over a corpse, or directly under a corpse becomes tameh. Okay, so let's get into this. Kol hamitamin ba'ovel. This is Perek Gimel Mishnah Aleph. Kol hamitamin ba'ovel shenechlaku. If any part of a human corpse that is large enough to transmit tumah by means of an ohel, which means a small, tiny part, the size of an olive, if it was divided into two, so each part is less than an olive size, Nisan the Sochabayis, and someone brought the pieces into a house, Eduyos ben Hercules metaher. Eduyos ben Hercules rules that any person or object in that house is tahor, because the pieces are separate and each on its own is too small to transmit tumah. Chachamim metamin, and the Chachamim rule that any person or object in the house is tameh because the separate pieces do combine with each other. Ketzad, how so? Which other cases besides for this one do Rabbi Dosa and the Chachamim disagree? The following cases. Number one, Hanageya b'chishne chatzai zeisim in hanavela o nosam. Someone touches two pieces of an animal carcass, each the size of a half olive, chatzi kazayis, or he carries them. of a mace, right? And regarding a human corpse which transmits tumma even through ohel, there were another 4 cases. Hanogeya b'chachatzi zayis mahil al-kachatzi zayis. Someone touches a half-hour piece of a human corpse and forms a roof over another half-hour piece. He touches one piece with one hand and puts his other hand over the other piece. Oh, nogea b'chachatzi zayis mahil lav. Or he touches a half-hour piece while another half-hour piece forms a roof over him. Mahil al kishnei chatzayis esim, or he forms a roof over 2 half-hour sized pieces. Mahil al kachatzi zayis mahil lav, or he forms a roof over 1 half-hour piece, and another half-hour piece forms a roof over him. Redos and Hercules matahir. In all these 6 cases, Redos and Hercules rules that the person remains tahor because the 2 set of pieces do not combine to form the kazayas amount. Chachamim metanim, but the Chachamim rule that he becomes tamei because the 2 pieces do combine to form the minimum amount. Aval hanogea b'chachatzi zayis. However, if one touches a half-hour piece of a corpse, and someone else forms a roof over him, and another half-hour piece, right, forms a roof over him, and another half-hour piece. Oh, mahil al kachasizais, or if he forms a roof over a half-hour piece, and something else forms a roof over him, and another half-hour piece. So he's inside the same house as one of those pieces and sticks his head out of the house and places it above the other piece. Tahar, everyone agree that he is Tahar. He's Tahar because the last 2 cases involve different forms of tumah transmission. One is touching, one is ohel, and they do not combine to make a person tummy. It to be the same form of tumah. Rabbi Meir said, even here, only Rabbi Dosa rules that the person is tahor, while the Chachamim rule that he is tamei. Hakol tamei. In all cases, the Chachamim hold that the 2 undersized pieces combine to make someone tamei. Chutz min hamaga im hamasa v'hamasa im ha'ohel, except where they transmit tumah through touching and carrying, or through carrying and ohel. This is the rule according to the Chachamim. Anytime 2 undersized pieces transmit tumah in ways that are from the same category, they combine to form the required amount and make the person tamei. Mishnei shemas tahor. But if they transmit tumah in ways that are from 2 different categories, they do not combine and the person remains tahor. Okay. Mishnah Beis. Ochel parud and started. Separate items of food, separate items of tummy food that are piled up together do not combine to form the minimum amount needed to transmit tumah. These are the words of Rabbi Dosa ben Herkinas. The Chachamim say mistaref. They do combine to transmit tumah. Now we're moving on to Ma'aser Sheni. Mechalin Ma'aser Sheni ala Simon. We can redeem Ma'aser Sheni produce onto a blank coin because the Torah considers it money for Ma'aser Sheni purposes. This is according to Ridos. The Chachamim say, we cannot redeem Ma'aser Sheni onto a blank coin because a blank coin has no value. It's like when they mint quarter. If you have a quarter without the face, without any of the stampings on the quarter. You just have the round shape of the quarter, but you don't have the markings of George Washington who's on the quarter, or you don't have the eagles in the back of the quarter. You just have the round quarter. So you can't use it as currency because that's not a stamped quarter. The third machlokes, matbilin yadayim lechatos. He immerses his hands in a mikveh for the purpose of touching and sprinkling mechat. Let's see, we're talking about the Kohen. This is being sprinkled from the Parah Duma. Right, so the Kohen does the sprinkling. So the Kohen, he has to be metovel his hands in the mikveh before he touches and sprinkles the mechat. That's the very dose. This is according to every dose. The Chachamim say, "In nitma yadav nitma gufo." One, if his hands become tamei, it is as though his entire body became tamei as far as mechadas is concerned, and therefore, before handling mechadas, he must be tovel his entire body in the mikveh. Mishnah Gimel. May avatiach v'kenivos yarak shel truma, the inside of a melon, the pits and the juice, and the parts that we removed, and the parts removed from vegetables, the outer spoiled leaves that are truma. Rabbi Dosa mati lezarim. Rabbi Dosa permits these scraps to be eaten by non-kohanim, because he does not regard them as food. The Chachamim osrim, but the Chachamim aser them to non-kohanim because, according to the Chachamim, they have the same status as food, and therefore they cannot be eaten. That's a truma. Someone shears 5 sheep, and the wool that was shorn from each sheep weighs about at least a mana and a half. Chayavos braces hagaze. The sheep are subject to the chiyuv of braces hagaze, which is the shearings of the sheep. But if the wool of any of the 5 sheep weighs less than a mana and a half, then the chiyuv braces hagaze does not apply. This is according to Midosa. If one shears 5 sheep and their wool weighs any amount, they are chayiv to the law of Rishis Hagez. Mishnah Daled Kol Hachaltzos Tameos Tamemes. All rush mats can become tummy with corpse tumah, but they cannot become tummy through midrash, because they are not usually designated for lying or sitting. This is according to Midosa. The Chachamim say midrash, they can become tummy even from midrash, because occasionally people do lie or sit on them and designate them for that purpose. Kol hakliyos taharos chutz mishal galgilon. All braided items are tahar. They cannot become tummy except for belts. This is according to Midosa. According to him, since the Torah specifies a woven article, it excludes braided ones. Nevertheless, a braided belt can become tamei, because a belt is an ornament, and ornaments can acquire tumah regardless of how they were made. The Chachamim say, "Kulam tameos chutz mishal smarim." All braided items can become tamei, except for the braided ropes of wool dealers. So according to the Chachamim, the braided items are the same as woven cloth, because the process of braiding is similar to that of weaving. And a wool dealer's rope cannot become tummy because it is braided loosely. Fun fact. Okay, Mishnah Hey. Akela shebeis kibul shala arug tameya. A sling whose holder is made of woven cloth can become tamei according to all opinions. However, if the holder is made of leather, Eduyos ben Hercules matayir. Eduyos ben Hercules rules that the sling is tahor, because a small piece of leather cannot become tamei unless it is a utensil, and the holder of a sling is not a utensil. Chachamim matamim. But the Chachamim rule that the sling can become tamei, because in his opinion the holder is a utensil. Nifsach base espa shalat tahora. If its finger hold split, it is tahor, because the sling is useless without the finger hold. Base hapekia shalat tamei. However, if its handle broke, the sling can still become tamei because it is usable even without the handle. Okay, Mishnah Vav. This is the final machlokas between Redosa and the Chacham, and then we move on to the next topic. Hashvuya ochelas b'tshuma, a woman who's a wife or a daughter of a Kohen who was captured by idolaters, may eat truma because we do not suspect that she was violated. The Redosa, this is according to Redosa. Chachamim omrim, but the Chachamim say, Yesh shvuya ochelas v'yesh shvuya she'eno ochelas. There is one type of captured woman who may eat truma, and there's another one type of captured woman who cannot eat truma. According to the Chachamim, we generally suspect that a captured woman was violated. However, she claims this did not happen. There's one situation where she's believed, and another situation where she is not believed. Kate said, how so? If the woman said, I was captured, but I am pure, I was not violated, she is believed and may eat truma. It's the mouth that asked her to eat truma is the same mouth that allowed her to eat truma. Meaning, had she not said anything, she would certainly be allowed to eat truma, since there's no evidence that she was captured. Since she could have kept her mouth shut, but instead she admitted that she was captured, which should have asked her to eat truma, it is clear that she's telling the truth. And therefore, when she adds that she was not violated, which permits her to eat truma, we believe her. However, if there are witnesses who testify that she was captured, and she says, I am pure, she is not believed that she may not eat truma. In this case, where it's known that she was captured, which is enough to make truma aser to her, she could not have kept quiet and still be allowed to eat truma. Therefore, we have no reason to believe her when she says that she was not violated. Okay, now we're moving on to machlokas between Rabbi Yeshua and the Chachamim. This is also later on in Taharus, which has 4 situations where it's possible that a Torah person or object become tamei. We do not know for sure. So we're going to talk about this now. This is Mishnah Zion. Arba Sveikos, Yeshua Mitarin. There are 4 cases of doubt where Yeshua rules that the item in question became tamei, but the Chacham ruled that it remained tahar. Kate said, how so? What are the cases? Tamei omei v'tahar over. A tamei person, specifically a metzora, was standing under a roof in a Rosh Yachid, and a tahar person passed close by in the Rosh Yachid, and it's not known whether the metzora transmitted tumah to the tahar person. In the second case, tahar omeid tamei over. A tahar person was standing under a roof in a Rosh Yachid, and a tamei person passed. Meaning a metzora, he passed close by in the Rosh Yachid, and it was not known whether the metzora transmitted tumah to the tahar person. Or the third case, tumah b'shus yachid with tahara b'shus rabin. The tamei person was a tamei item was in Rosh Yachid that opened into Rosh Rabim, and a tahar item was in the Rosh Rabim, but it's not known whether the tahar item entered the Rosh Yachid and received tumah from the tamei item. Tahara b'shus yachid with tumah b'shus rabim. A tahar item was in a private domain. Was a Rosh Yachid that opened to a public domain, and a tamei item was in the Rosh Hashanah, and it's not known whether the tamei item entered the Rosh Yachid and transmitted tumah to the tahar item. So Safik Naga, Safik Lo Naga. Either there is a doubt whether or not the one item and the person or object touched the other one. Safik Ha'el, Safik Lo Ha'el. Or there is a doubt whether or not tumah was transmitted by means of a roof. Safik Hasit, Safik Lo Hasit. Or there is a doubt whether one item moved the other. So, Rabbi Yeshua Metame, Rabbi Yeshua rules that in each of the 4 cases the tar item becomes tameh. The Chachamim metarim, but the Chachamim rule that it remains tar. So what's going on over here? According to Yeshua, since the possible transmission would have taken place in Rosh Yachid, the private domain, we apply the general rule that when a doubt arises in the private domain, the tar item is assumed to have become tameh. According to Chachamim, however, the rule does not apply in the first 2 cases, which involve Mitzorah, because the rule does not include Tumah transmitted by a Mitzorah. And the rule does not apply in the last 2 cases where we do not know whether the item in the public domain remain there or enter the private domain, because the rule does not include situations where it is possible that one of the items remains in the public domain. Got that? Okay, good. The next Mishnah, Mishnah Ches, deals with the machlokes between Rabbi Tzadok and the Chachamim. The first we had Rabbi Dosa ben Rabbi Dosa. One second. First we were dealing with Rabbi Dosa ben Hyrcanus, okay. Then we dealt with Rabbi Yeshua, and now we're moving on to Rabbi Tzadok. There are 3 things that Rabbi Tzadok considers to be tameh, are capable of becoming tameh. The Chachamim metarim, but which the Chachamim consider to be tahor, which is incapable of becoming tameh. Misamer hashulchani, the nail of is the nail of the money changer, the nail from which a money changer hangs is weighing scales. Aaron shall grusos, a grist merchant's chest, I mean the chest in which a grist merchant stores his bean flour. So what is this going on? So a grist merchant grinds beans into flour which he sells. He sells the flour in a certain type of wooden chest, and usually keeps the chest in one place and does not move it around. According to the Chachamim, the chest is incapable of becoming tameh because the rule is that a wooden object cannot become tameh unless it is made to move from one place to the other. Rabbi Tzadok, on the other hand, argues that since the chest is sometimes moved for the sake of repairs, that's enough for it to be considered a utensil that is moved around. A misarmer shall Evan shows, and the nail of a sundial, the nail at the center of a sundial, Rabbi Tzadok rules that they are capable of becoming tameh because he considers them to be utensils. The Chachamim rule that they are tahor because the Chachamim hold that they are not utensils. Okay, now we're moving on. The next Mishnah is deal with the machlokes between Gamliel and the Chachamim. So it's a Mishnah test. There are 4 things that Gamliel considers to be tameh, but which the Chacham consider to be tahor. Number 1, the cover of a householder's metal basket. The Gamliel rules that it is a utensil which can become tameh, because it has a hollow space in which things can be held. According to the Chachamim, however, since people use it only to cover the basket, it is not a utensil in its own right. Betoloi ha-megardos, the hook of a bathing comb. This is specifically a specially shaped nail attached to the wall of the bathhouse on which the bathing combs were hung. The Chachamim regard it as an ordinary nail, which cannot become tameh. On the other hand, holds that since it has its own special shape, it is considered a kli and can become tameh. Galmei kli matachos, unfinished metal utensils, newly made utensils that are already usable but missing some decorative work, such as polishing or engraving. So he holds that since they are usable, they are makabel tumah. But the Chachamim said that since they're not complete, they are not considered utensils. The tavla, the nechlekol, the shnayim, and a tray. The 4th one, and a tray that's split into 2 pieces. It seems to be equal in size. Gamliel holds that both pieces can become tameh, although they appear to have the same size. It is impossible for them to be exactly equal. Rather, one must be slightly larger than the other, and the larger piece can certainly become tummy since it is the majority of the original tray. Therefore, since we do not know which piece is the larger one, we must treat both as capable of becoming tummy. According to the Chachamim, however, we may assume that both pieces do in fact have the same size. Neither one is a majority of the original tray; it is only half, so neither can become tummy. But the Chachamim agreed with Rabbi Gamliel regarding a tray that is split into two unequal pieces, one large and one small. That large piece is tameh, since it is a majority of the original tray, and the small piece is tahor, because it is only a minority of the original tray. Mishnah Yud. Continuing with Rabbi Gamliel. In three matters regarding Yom Tov, Rabbi Gamliel rules strictly following the rules of the view of Beis Shammai, which are Ein Tonin as a Chanim Yom Tov Shabbos. We may not insulate a pot of hot water on Yom Tov for use on Shabbos, even if an Erev Tashila has been made. There's a standard Erev Tashila is not effective to permit insulating on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Right, because you have to make it Erev Tashilin. So, yeah, but Beis Hillel do allow you to do that. But Gamliel, even though he descended from Hillel, he followed Beis Shammai in these situations. We may not reassemble the parts of a candlestick on Yom Tov because this resembles the Malacha building, which is Asher and Yom Tov. And ve'ein ofen pitim gritzin ela rakikin. We may not bake thick loaves of bread on Yom Tov if they are more than needed for Yom Tov, because it is usher to cook on Yom Tov for more than is necessary. Rather, we make thin loaves, the loaves that are actually going to be eaten. It used to be, it probably still is now, that in order to get the biggest effect from baking, you want to fill up the entire oven with bread so it all bakes evenly and it's more geschmack. If you can't do it, you have to put in exactly what you need. You can't fill up the whole oven if you're not going to use the whole oven worth of bread. Our Rabbi Gamliel said, in all the days of my father's household, they would not bake thick loaves, many loaves of bread on Yom Tov, only thin loaves, therefore avoiding extra effort. Below, the Chama said to him, what shall we do with this practice of my father's household? It does not prove that baking thick loaves are generally prohibited. Because they were stringent in this matter for themselves. But they ruled leniently for all other people of Klal Yisrael, allowed them to bake thick, numerous loaves of bread, and even to make cold-baked bread, which requires even greater effort. Therefore, you can't base halacha on that. And Mishnah Yud Aleph. In addition, he ruled in the Chanim in three matters. Previous Mishnah was things he was more machmir on, dealing with three that were lenient. This also comes in Teches Beitza. Mechabden ben hamitos, we may sweep food from between the couches on which people recline while eating, because there's little concern that in such a small area one might fill in small holes there by the level of the floor, which would be malacha building. We may place incense on burning coals on Yom Tov to create a pleasant aroma, despite this being a malacha of kindling, because it increases one's joy on Yom Tov. And we may we can roast a young goat together with its innards on Pesach night, because that is how the Pesach offering was roasted, and one thereby commemorates the korban. According to the Chachamim, this is how we pass on eat roasted meat on the Seder night. We stay far away from that because you don't want to have an issue of a shchutei chutz that looks like you're eating a korban outside Yerushalayim. I wonder if in Yerushalayim, take the old city, if they eat roasted meat on the Seder night, which wasn't a korban Pesach, because they're within the walls of Yerushalayim, so therefore you were not going to say shchutei chutz. I got to ask one of my friends who lives in Eretz Yisrael what they do there on Seder night. Yeah, the Chachamim say they asked these three acts. They asked all these things. They asked sleeping into the couches because that might lead to filling in holes in the floor elsewhere in the house. And they also asked placing incense and burning coals because that's not the practice of most people, and therefore not considered yom tov. It's not a darash of the chol nefesh. And they also asked eating a young goat with its innards on Pesach night, because that was a specific requirement of the current Pesach, and doing so might cause people to think that one is eating a current Pesach outside of Yerushalayim, which is usher. Okay, Mishnah Yud Beis. Now we go into Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. Moving on. Shlosh Devar Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah Mativ Chachamim Osman. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah permits three things. The Chachamim answered them. Parasa Yotav Rotzur Sheben Karneh. His cow will go out on Shabbos until it was just a rabbin with a decorative ribbon between its horns. Because in his view, a decorative ribbon is an item of clothing for a cow. So the cow's wearing of the ribbon is not an act of carrying. And he rules that we may curry the body of the animal with a fine-toothed metal comb on the other. You can scratch and scrape it. Even though the sharp teeth of the comb might prick the animal and make it bleed, which is also under the malacha of shchita, as a result is not intended. And he rules that we may grind peppercorns in the small grinders that are made specifically for grinding them. The Chachamim, however, disagree. They disagree with Elazar ben Azariah. In their view, a cow may not be let out with a decorative ribbon between its horns because they hold that it is not an item of clothing. They also currying an animal with a fine-toothed metal comb because they might make the animal bleed. And they also grinding peppercorns in a regular pepper grinder because doing so seems like a weak activity. And Yehuda says, we may not curry an animal with a fine-toothed metal comb on Yonta because it might make a bleeding wound in the animal. We may curry with a blunt-toothed wooden comb, as it will not make such a wound. The Chachamim say, we may not curry with a metal comb or with a wooden comb. Because if a wooden comb would be allowed, people might think that all combs are allowed, even metal ones. That's all for today. We'll continue tomorrow with Perek Daled. Good and have a wonderful day.